Hello! My belief is that this is video number 14. We're pretty excited. We're getting a lot of material out. And today you get to see Carleen in a fancier outfit than usual. I also have washed my hair for today. So there must be something in destiny going to happen later today.
The yearly hair wash?
Wow, yeah, it's like a thing. It's a thing. So what I want to talk about today, I'm going to call this one theory, because I can't think of what other label to give this video. So we all know there's all kinds of theories out there. There's Freudian theory, psychodynamic theory, social constructionist theory, behavior mod theory, dialectical behavior therapy. There's all different kinds of therapy approaches and beliefs and theories, and probably this very, very moment there's 1,000 people writing something to do with some theory, and they'll publish it in a year from now, because that's what people like that do. They just keep publishing things. And often, now that I've been in this profession long enough, my belief is, I think, didn't I already hear exactly this before under a different label? And it's true, I have. So what I'm going to say now is just sort of some riffs and some bits, and I'm going to do a little review. So we've talked about anti-racism, we've talked about Black Lives Matter, we've talked about the significance of language and word choices, and that's our magic, knowing how to give word or give voice to our clients' experiences with them, help them untangle some big mess that's inside themselves. We've talked about elders and elder abuse. We've talked about structural approaches to human troubles, and sort of a macro, meso, micro way of looking at the problems, and we want to look at all those levels. We've talked about grief and loss, shame, grief, loss, shame, any story that's about social work with victims of abuse. Those themes are in there somewhere. We've talked about interdisciplinarity, that medical model, the doctor, the lawyer, the teacher, the psychologist, psychiatrist, all of these people might have a slightly different take on what's happened with someone who's been abused. They might have different ways to help the person. They may have different paradigms, worldviews, analysis. They also may have different time issues. So they may, the medical doctor might have 5 minutes to work with the rape victim. We might have 55-minute sessions for 12 months. Or if you work in a feminist-oriented women's shelter or crisis place, you might have the client with you for 3 months, 24/7. And you can work more spontaneously and organically. We've talked about how some of these dynamics play out in a northern and remote context. If there is no rape crisis center, if there is no cop, if there is no social worker, and you're the one person who's kind of a do-all, be-all to all the people who are struggling, how is your world different than, let's say, if you work in downtown Vancouver, where you can be more specialized? You could have the support group for teenagers who are sexually abused, or elders who've been abused. You could have the lesbian support group. You could have different places and spaces where people could bond with each other through healing and access very specialized services and resources. That might not be the case if you're living on a reserve, or you're living in a really remote location. We've talked about, again, poverty. And so poverty is the way we're talking about it, not just poverty as in money, but poverty of time, poverty of knowledge, poverty of respect, dignity, poverty of enchantment, joy, empowerment, hope. And all of these things intersect and interconnect and sediment and make a big, messy, mushy kind of pile all around the work we do with the clients. We've talked about art therapy and some of the assumptions and beliefs of art therapy. So art therapy is a technique for healing. It is a therapeutic approach. We'll come back to that in a minute. We've talked about organizations, and the organization will never love you. So whether that's the police force, the whole hospital, the entire institution of the Catholic Church, some of these big organizations, they have ways they're going to respond to abuse that may diminish or demean or set our clients off balance, erase our clients' worldview. We've talked about how you might wish to respond to that. We've talked about self-care and how important that is if you're doing this kind of work, if you're constantly working, if in a day you have 8 different women in front of you who've been beaten or sexually abused or both, or traumatized in 100 ways. you are very soon going to become cynical, depleted, maybe cranky and bitter, or shut down, because it is overwhelming. My film crew here already a couple times they've said to me at the end of the session, "Whoa, that's heavy." And then we've all run home to eat peanut butter straight from the jar or something like that. So it's the kind of thing that it's not like, okay, I did self-care in 1992 for 3 days and I was done. It's the kind of thing that ongoingly...
Like the dishes.
Like the dishes. You're always going to have to be washing the dishes and doing the laundry and sweeping the floor of your self-care, of your soul. Sweep the floor in your soul all the time. Don't wait till it's this high with dirt.
Yeah, don't let your soul get dusty.
Don't let it get too dusty or mucky. And we talked about technology, how technology has consequence and meaning for good or for sour and poor. And we talked about toxic masculinity. So and all of these things intersect, and you can't have in your mind, okay, oh, there's this. On Tuesdays we deal with toxic masculinity. On Wednesdays we deal with self-care. On Thursdays we deal with elder abuse. It's all mixed together. So this is one of the, I've told people a way to think about this is a slinky. If you've ever seen a slinky, it's a kid's toy. It goes like this. I have one of them somewhere around here. Oh, there's one. Oh, wait, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. There's our slinky. I'll talk about this. So this is a good thing for you to imagine is, this is, if we put this end of our slinky, if we say this is micro, this is one-on-one right now, right here, eye contact, body language, breathing, everything that's very, very impersonal and in the immediate moment. On this end, we could say this is everything global, historic, large. This is the big, big world. This is 500 years of oppression. This is racism, and this is stealing land. This is the big, big global economic picture. And when you're sitting with a client, you're always doing this as you're working with them. You're thinking about this client who's in front of me right now. How old are they? What ethnocultural group are they from? What does their religious faith say about these struggles we're talking about? How does this client's mother, father, family members, their loved ones, how do they all frame into this story? How does the medical model, the legal system, the bus system, everything, how does all of that constantly intersect and interconnect? Again, you can't say, oh, only on Fridays will I deal with the historical abuses, and only the fourth Saturday of every month is rape relevant. In the client's worldview, it's all a mishmash, right? So it is fair to say with clients to say to a client, maybe after the second or third session, and you go intuitively with it, you would say something like, so we'll make, what will we say is our imaginary client? Pick a name.
Sarah.
Sarah. So Sarah, our client. Sarah, we've met together 3 times. Today is our 4th session. And I just want to say how proud I am of you that you've come here to make your life better. You've come here to process some of your grief and loss and shame and rage and fear. All of these emotions you've talked to me about or suggested to me through your body language and your tone. I want you to know I'm listening to you. I want to help you. I'm on your side. I'm an expert on patterns. I'm not an expert on your life, Sarah. What I want to do today, now that you've kind of shared some of the bigness and messiness of the struggles, for today's session, I'm wondering, could we start to kind of narrow down and chunk out some of the topics we want to process our way through? So I kind of have this third eye that I've been watching you with, and I'm thinking we could talk today about the legal issues that you're confronting, or we could spend the next 50 minutes we've got together today to talk about your family struggles. Last session we talked about your immediate safety concerns, so I know you're safe. I know there's no danger in your life right now. I know you've got a full tummy, you've got a bus pass. We figured out some of those crisis issues. So for right now today, out of all the things you've told me, what are 1 or 2 things that are the top priorities in your world? So see, right? I've shown the client, I care, I'm listening, I've heard what you've said, but now we want to start pacing ourselves and doing some more depthful work. In the first couple sessions, if you're working with somebody who's been hurt, of course you want, if there's medical help needed, if you're working with a woman who's been beaten up, you're not going to say, let's talk about your long-term career goals, right? First, all the safety stuff. Does she need medical intervention? If she's been sexually assaulted, does she want to do a rape kit? If it's a legal issue, do we want to call the police? Do we want to get a statement? Do we want to, maybe if he broke into her apartment and maybe she doesn't want to call the police, but maybe we could go to her apartment and take pictures. That might be a thing where she was like, okay, at least if I had pictures of how I bruised up and how he did this to my apartment, then if he does it again, I've got information that I can use, right? So there's crisis issues, priority issues, immediate issues, but then there's the longer term and the deeper place issues. She picks. She's boss.
So different levels.
Yeah, exactly. Different levels and different, so micro, meso, macro, but also short term, medium term, longer term. And she or he or they set the tone, right? So, given all of that, and given my experiences, and given what we've already touched on in our previous 13 sessions, today I wanted to just say a few words about therapeutic approaches. And I've already said pretty implicitly and explicitly that I really love art therapy. I totally adore art therapy, and I've explored with the viewers why and how I find that useful. It gives the client control of the story and the pacing. It gives them something they can go home and share with their daughter, their family, their friend. It gives them something they can own, because in today's world I may not get to see the client for another 29 days, right? But if I've encouraged them to do journaling, or if I've reminded them that they, all the things that they already have somewhere inside their world, oh, you've told me in the past you love to go walking, you love to go and do gardening, you love to do quilting. Let's, at the last 10 minutes or so of a session, to remind them, you've told me about these strategies that you've used in the past that have helped you to feel stronger, more buoyant, more focused, more calm. You remind them of those and then amplify and encourage more of that stuff, right? So that's part of what art therapy does. It pulls the strengths that are already in a person. It can also affirm and celebrate their cultural heritage. So saying to them, oh, you've told me you do beading, or your mother used to make moccasins, or your grandma made quilts, or your cousin who's your best friend does cooking. Can you talk to me about one or two things you're going to do in those zones between now and when I see you in 3 weeks? Right? So you're taking what's already there and you're amplifying it. That's one of the things that art therapy does. So there's lots I'll say about art therapy, but I wanted to say some other things. Cognitive therapy, and I'm being very brief and very simplistic because it's just one video, right? There's each of these theories and therapies. There's been
They could have hours of video on just one.
Yeah, exactly. There's thousands of books being written on all these things. And I'm not here to take away anything that's working for you as a practitioner in social work with victims of abuse.
And not to offend anyone in the psych program.
Right. I'm here to add and to just say in my own experiences, there's certain things I've found. And art therapy does that stuff. So, I just wanted to restate. The client owns it. The client can utilize the art therapy stuff at 4 in the morning when they're all by themselves, like so journaling or needlepoint or sewing. You can also encourage her, and I'll keep saying her for the purposes of this whole course, because for the most part, it will be more women's shelters and rape crisis centers and so on where we're working with women. But of course, all of this is the same for men, okay? They own it. They can use it whenever they need to. They can share that resource or practice with their family and friends. We're always looking for things that are technologically simple and like sewing. Right? You don't want them to ever feel they have to produce an art piece that looks like something from Georgia O'Keeffe or some incredibly talented person. Although maybe they are incredibly talented, and yay, that's good, right?
But they don't need to be Van Gogh to do art therapy.
Right. So all those ways of being expressive, very important. We want to offer them that. We want them to take notes when they're doing their artworks or creative experiences. Take little notes so that when you see me again, we can pick up that discussion. So keep a pen and paper beside your bed, so if in your dream you have some thoughts or a dream that gives you some kind of memory or wish or curiosity, make a few notes And then when you see me in 3 weeks, we can talk about that if that's useful for you. So we've reminded them in that moment there, you're the boss. You come back with the topics you want to talk about from your dream or from your gardening or your cooking or whatever. So they're in control of it. People who've been abused, they have had their control taken away from them. So this is the number one thing we want to always be communicate. You're in control of our process together. You set the pacing and the tone. You're the expert on your life. I'm just here to kind of witness you and nudge you and encourage you and validate you and to help you understand how your experience fits into some larger patterns. So larger pattern is the police might not always believe you when you first talk to them. Don't take that personally. That's how they've been trained sometimes. They're looking for evidence. And maybe you aren't able to give them the data that they see as evidence.
But that doesn't mean that you're invalid by any means.
Precisely. I believe you. I hear you. I know this happened. There's no reason for you to be making this up. I know it happened. I trust you. I'm with you.
I validate your truth.
I validate your truth. So those are some of the things that I want to say. Cognitive therapy to me is often more suited to helping somebody quit smoking or improving their scholarly work. There are maybe bits of cognitive therapy that you can mix and match into art therapy approach. Obviously, feminist approach. It's so obvious nowadays, it's not even worth talking about. 30 years ago, feminist therapy, there were all these books on feminist therapy, and now what used to be called feminist therapy is just embedded within quality therapy. It's just considered professional or competent therapy to be able to bring in those insights, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say here is Rogerian therapy, client-centered therapy, humanist therapy, those kind of therapies that encourage the client to feel tall and strong and centered and trusting of their own insights and intuitions. Love those approaches. Love those approaches. Behavior mod, that idea of rewards and punishments, some pieces of that might be useful, but only if you've built the trust, the respect, the compassion, and the connection with the client. If you're only using behavior mod or cognitive, I don't think it's a very good idea. You're not offering up the best quality of work with a person who's been made to feel crushed and vulnerable. I think also Rogerian and art therapy, client-centered, there's way more space there to add joy, enchantment, magic, healing, hope. There's an idea in art therapy called making special. And again, it's one of those things that's so obvious for some people that it almost goes without a word. Like, why would you even say that out loud?
Like, it seems like common sense.
It seems like common sense. It would just common who you are. If you've been brought up in a, let's say, a good family, a loving family, a good context, there's certain things that matter, but you take them for granted. And people who have been in a long-term unfortunate context, they may not have had that. So I'll give examples. My parents were very chaotic. They had a lot of things going on. There's always fighting and trouble and disharmony, or there would be shut down. So my mom would just kind of seal herself off and be away. Like, she'd be in her room with the door closed, and I was not to bother her. When I go and visit with my grandparents on weekends, they made me feel special. So my grandpa would pick me up on a Friday at 4 o'clock from school, and he would wait outside for me so I could see his car in the last 10 minutes of class, and I felt really special. If my grandpa said he was going to be there at 4, he would be there at 4. With my parents, it's 50-50. Maybe they completely forget they said that, or they were supposed to be there. I couldn't count on them, and they didn't make me feel special. They made me have anxiety because I couldn't count on them. My grandfather made me feel special by 100% of the time. If he said he'd be there at 4, he would be there at 4. Then when I got home to my grandparents' house, it would be just my grandma and grandpa there. Supper would be on the table at 5, and there would be like my favorite foods, and there'd be pumpkin pie because that was one of my favorites. It made me feel special. right? Versus with my parents, maybe there'd be food, maybe there wouldn't, maybe there'd be supper, I'd open a can of corn and eat from the can, maybe they wouldn't be home. I had no idea most of the time what would be going on. And if there was a meal that was being put together, I would also have anxiety because it could mean there's going to be a fight breakout, and maybe within the next 30 minutes there'll be some screaming, and he'll throw the can this or that way, or he'll throw the fridge and break her finger. Or so even when there was some kind of meal being prepared, it was about anxiety. That never happened at my grandparents' house. Supper would be on the table, everybody had their little spot, and they had their favorites, and we all got portions on our plate, and it made me feel special. And then there's pumpkin pie with whipped cream, or with ice cream, or with both, right? So that's making you feel special. So in art therapy, there's that idea. We want to encourage our clients to feel special. What reminds them of their worth and value in the world? The perpetrator has made them feel worthless, valueless, voiceless, less. So exploring with them, maybe again not in the first or second sessions, but as time goes on, what would make them feel prettier, taller, smarter, more handsome, more empowered, more clean, comforted, soothed, cherished. Because even by putting that question into the room, you're reminding them that they are
all of those things.
All of those things, right? I put this out there because that's, again, client-centered, feminist, indigenous therapy, art therapy. It's that kind of maybe positive psychology. It could be in that bouquet of offerings, right? When you have your 1 hour session with the client, you always want to end, like put the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes into, what are you going to do between now and the next time I see you that will help you feel soothed? Let's talk about that. What's 1 or 2 things that you could do to make yourself feel healthier? Mm-hmm. Oh, I could go for a walk around the block. Could you consent and commit to do that 1 time at least between now and next time I saw you? Right? You're letting them know, I care enough about you that when you come back in 30 days, I'm going to say, so how did the walk go? Oh, you said you loved peanut butter cookies. And you also told me you used to bake before you lived with this person who's hurt you. Do you have the funds, resources, time, space to make yourself 1 batch of peanut butter cookies? What would be involved in that? Oh, okay, so you need butter, peanut butter, flour, sugar. Could you get those things? Could you make a commitment to yourself and to me that between now and next time I see you, you're going to make yourself a dozen peanut butter cookies? Right? So you're always looking to conclude the session with something about making special, in my belief, when working with social worker victims of abuse. Because you don't want people leaving your office so raw, so vulnerable, crying and weeping, that they may leave and feel awful.
Could you say that you're giving them purpose then, or like advocacy for themselves?
Well, advocacy for themselves, I like that they're going to reach inside themselves and demand from the world a little bit better than they've been receiving. And that, that can, for people who've been in happy, wholesome environments, a lot of that stuff, I'll make peanut butter cookies, not a big deal. But when I worked at the women's shelter, AWAC here, Association for Women and Children, I worked there for a year, and there were people there who didn't brush their teeth, there were people who didn't shower, there were people who would never change their sheets, there were people who lived on only donuts, cigarettes, coffee, people who had come to feel they were useless space, just dead skin. They felt no esteem for themselves. So even a simple thing like, could you make a commitment to brush your teeth and wash your hair once a week for the next 4 weeks between now and when I see you? For people who are very depressed, who are suicidal, who are overwhelmed and crushed, even that can make them feel special. And they can almost borrow your authority and power, because they're like, I have to wash my hair because I promised my therapist I would wash my hair. And then they feel a little bit better, right? Most people in the world those aren't, making special. But if you can, then they come back and you say, wow, how'd that go? You had these goals. One of the goals was you're going to make peanut butter cookies for yourself. You're going to wash your hair once a week. You're going to brush your teeth every single day. If that's the only thing you did for the whole day, you're going to get out of bed, brush your teeth, go back to bed. Right? And so you give them lists, or you work with them to construct lists of things they can achieve, they want to achieve. It's their best self to achieve those things, and you will do no harm because they picked those things. Right? So they come back and say, yeah, I did everything. I did it all. I had the cookies, I washed my hair, brushed my teeth, I went for walks. They come back and you can applaud them. And they can applaud themselves. And then you go into some more deeper stuff for the 5th session, the 6th session, and so on, right? So I just wanted to say those things. I also wanted to say about, and I'm guessing most of you know this, but just to build your confidence that I think you're on the right path with it. Many people have this imagining is that when you're healing from abuse, it's again A, B, C, D. It's actually more of a scribble. It's more of a this kind of a thing.
It's not linear.
It's not linear. It's not sequential. And some of the behavior model cognitive approaches can kind of suggest that idea.
That or make you feel like because you haven't done something that somehow you've managed to like regress or go back or do poorly or like there's some sort of negative connotation with it, like you haven't been doing something for yourself.
Right, exactly. And what we want to do is they can never feel bad from us. We never want them to feel inadequate or cornered or trapped or bad or guilty or inadequate. Never. All we do, almost everything we do is about complimenting them. And that would be a little tidbit from solution-focused therapy. There's ideas around compliments and affirmations. I do like that from brief solution focus. You look for exceptions. So a person may say, I've had nightmares almost every night for the last month. And so you would ask them from a Rogerian client-centered or an art therapy, say, have you been able to journal? Were you able to put some words down? Do you have any memories or even a scribble or an image from all those dreams? We go with that. If they say, no, I never had time for that, I never got around to it, I just had nightmares almost every night. So then you might ask them, the nights that you didn't have the nightmares, is there anything there that we could notice? Like what was going on those nights where you did wake up feeling rested? Let's talk about that. So sometimes there are those organic exceptions, and solution-focused therapy talks about find the exceptions to the difficulty and find the strengths in the person and amplify those. I like those ideas from solution-focused therapy. There are many, many therapeutic approaches. Research that I've witnessed from feminist approach, indigenous approach, Rogerian approach, basically says the #1 ingredient that makes a difference is relationship. So whatever your theory is, or if the client doesn't feel in any way connected to you,
they're not going to open up to you, and your therapy method won't matter.
It won't matter. Trust, empathy, warmth, good listening skills, good communication skills, kindness, tenderness, effective mirroring. So if the client says, for the last 5 times I've come here, I felt slightly better, and they do something with their body, and you, in that split second, you mirror their body, it sends a message to them, wow, she's really listening to me. She is really attuned to me. Or you just looked away for a split second. I said, oh, I just noticed you looked away for a split second. What came across your mind in that split second?
Yeah.
Again, you're showing the client,
that you were noticing you.
I'm noticing you. You matter. I'm noticing you've got these spiffy shoes with flowers and your little nails there done in yellow and those kind of things. So you really notice how the client is presenting themselves to the world. Right, yeah, look at that. That's it. Clients notice that you've noticed them. And to notice them with refinement, discernment, precision, to be able to say, oh, I'm noticing today that you've got new shoes on. You've been here 5 times and I don't remember seeing those. Are those new? So again, that's a therapeutic intervention. Right, but it's not like big abstract theory in the universe. You've helped them feel special, making special by noticing them. The way my grandparents noticed me by making sure there were peanut butter cookies, or making sure if he said he'd be there at 4, he was there at 4. So it's not huge. It's not anything where, oh, I got to go to chapter 49 of the book and memorize through rote memory all these things. If you pictured yourself, maybe before every client walks in, that you take a deep breath, clear your mind, become fully present and available and attuned, get rid of all the junk from your own universe where you're like, oh, did I do the laundry? Did I remember to feed the cats? Get rid of that. And that was part of what we were talking about under self-care, is if you've done all your own good self-care, then you should kind of be empty when the client walks in. There's every client, if there's 8 in the day, between clients, you take your notes, you do your own art doodle, whatever it takes for you to remember what you need to remember. You put that in the file, and then give yourself that minute where you just take a deep breath and you are empty. You're a white screen or a black screen or whatever color it is you need for pink, yellow, bright yellow, to be refreshed. And then when they come in, you've had a chance to review their file and to be able to say, so Sarah, we've been together 5 sessions, we've talked about this and this and this. I remember these were the 3 most important things that you brought up the last time. I remember you were very afraid that on the 12th of this month was the wedding anniversary, and you're worried that your ex-husband's going to show up at the door. So today's the 10th, the 12th is Friday. What are you thinking about what's going to happen on Friday? Is that still a concern on your mind? You see, right away, boom, we're into a session. She knows I've summarized everything we've learned together before. She's been teaching me about her life. I'm imagining what the world is like to be her. She said she's going to have a scary day on her anniversary. Maybe she'll say, oh no, he got hit by a car, he's dead. I'm talking about something else today, my new job, right? You never know. What she said was important 3 sessions back might not be as important today. I'm being foolish about that, but what clients have said at one point, you also don't want to freeze frame them, right? Like, you said this was important, so we're going to talk about that.
Right. This was a problem then, but it's not necessarily a problem
right,
now.
Because they're always in movement, they're always fluid, and we want them to know we respect that. We cherish that, as a matter of fact. But could you imagine how you would feel if somebody remembered all the things you've said over the last 5 weeks and was able to put all that in some kind of sense making and they start where we left off last time?
Wow, what's that?
Wow, I feel sparkly all over. I'm tingling. Let's go.
Yeah.
And they feel special. Yep. So that's a very, very important thing. I believe whether you're working with elders who've been abused, children who've been abused, adults who've been abused, any kind of abuse, those are some of the things. Rogerian, client-centered, and humanitarian, those are, to me now, they've evolved to be part of feminist therapy and maybe indigenous therapy. There are different labels now that have been put on some of those approaches, and they're just best quality professional practice, right? The other thing that I just wanted to mention here is somewhere in the first, second, third time you're with a client, you may also want to ask them, have you ever had a counseling experience before? Have you ever seen someone before? Have you even seen a school counselor before? Most people will say, yeah, they've had one moment or two like that somewhere in their life. And say to them, what was helpful or what was not helpful? And if they say, well, that bitch from the school counselor, she was always trying to get me to do the math, or she always had her own idea, or she wasn't really listening to me, or she would ask me 5 questions in a row and not listen to any of my answers. You make sure you remember that, right? And again, you've made the client feel special because you've asked them what was helpful before, what was not helpful. And remember what they've told you. And
particularly the helpful stuff.
Right, and another comment I'll often make is, teach me more of what it's like to be you. What's it feel like to be in your body and in your life in a day-to-day way?
In your words, what is this like?
Yeah, and leave some silences, leave some pauses, give them time to reflect. Many times in white world, we're like, blah, 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 right? And also we may feel that pressure of, oh my God, I've got 7 other clients today. I've got 87 things I have to do. The phone's been ringing. I've got to, no. Trust the process, and trust if you can get completely innocent, fresh, and buoyant, let's say, like bubbly, like champagne. You're going to get your blood to be like champagne, that you'll learn everything you need to learn and about the client and what will be helpful to them. Some agencies, you have all these forms. Let's say your intake form of what's your birthday, what's your social insurance, where have you lived, how long have you had this problem, like an auctioneer. No. My recommendation, and please don't get fired, my recommendation is those processes and documents and templates, they can be useful, but for the most part, if you don't have a relationship with the client of trust and warmth,
you can't expect them to open up to questions that are that deep and personal like that right off the get-go.
Right. Or they'll lie. We had in an earlier thing where I was talking about if I go to the walk-in clinic and I want my antidepressants, my ulcer meds, my blood pressure meds, and my migraine meds renewed, and I know there's 100 people in the waiting room, and I know this is a walk-in clinic, and I know every single time I go it's going to be a different doctor, and I know they are only allocated 15 minutes to talk to me, when he turns to me and says, "How are you feeling?" I know he wants me to say, "Fine." He does not want me to say, I feel my anorexia and bulimia coming back. I think about suiciding every day. I want to jump under a train. I've killed 2 people in the last 4 days. He wants me to say, fine. I know that. No one has to tell me that. I want him to renew my prescriptions. I say, fine. He says, I'm glad. And he renews my prescriptions. So our clients know the kind of formula and the exchange that is going to happen. We want to rupture that a little bit and trust the process. If you need for your agency or your fund, or if you need the client's social insurance number or something like that, at the end of the session or the second session you've built some trust and warmth and compassion, and then you say, oh, I have to fill this in. Could you just quickly fill this in for me? Often just give them the document and they'll fill it in, right? Or you could just get the core data that you need, and then the next session get some core data. Or ask them, if I give you this to take home, could you fill it in and bring it back, right? Versus opening with that stuff, because it can feel very, very condescending, and it can feel cold and invasive. And ask yourself, go in, do this privately, you do not have to share. Go to your most repulsive memories of your own life, the worst case of diarrhea you've ever had, the worst food poisoning, the most terrible memory, if you beat a child, if you got drunk and had sex with someone that the next morning you go, oh my God. Go to your own worst memory of yourself.
And then imagine talking to someone about it.
A complete stranger. A complete stranger. Why would you do that? Why would you tell a complete stranger, especially in a northern or remote small community? Tell a person you hardly know, tell them the worst thing about yourself, which is often the rape story, the incest story, the wife assault story. They feel shame, they feel remorse, they feel self-disgust, they feel you're going to judge them. Why would they tell you that in the first session? Just boom. Why would we ever expect that, right? So begin with small talk maybe. I love your shoes, those are really pretty. Don't feel embarrassed about that. It's only like, oh, I've got a 4-year degree. I have to go right into the guts of the matter. Oh, my boss wants me to get this form filled out. No. Be with this person. Do unto others as you would wish them to do unto you. Would you share with someone you had started to develop trust with, kindness, respect, where you were looking into their eyes and their face and their body and the world, and you felt seen, heard, felt, where you were certain this person will never do me harm. If you've achieved that with your clients in the first 1 or 2 sessions, all that other stuff will figure itself out. They're like, yeah, here's my social insurance number. Yeah, here's my phone number. Yeah. clickety clack clack, right at the end of the session. Some of that stuff too, you can trust people to just like your session's over and say, okay, I have to wrap this up because somebody else needs to come in and talk with me. How about I just give you these forms and you fill them all in the next hour or half hour. You could go to Tim Hortons down the street and come back and just put them with the secretary. And many times you'll feel, oh, okay, great, and they'll fill it in, right? It depends on your agency, your contacts, and so on. But for today, those were some of the theory and process and practical bits that I wanted to add to our work of social work with victims of abuse, and what I feel is most important to draw from the sort of mainstream therapeutic theories out there. People ask, what's your therapeutic theory?
Or just the idea that you can use ideas from different theories.
Oh yeah, you can customize.
Rather than sticking with just one, or labeling yourself as a,
Precisely.
a solely cognitive behavior
Right, you don't
therapist.
have to be a theoretical purist. You can mix and match, and you can also even say to the client, here's this idea from, we've talked about all these things today, and I'm really starting to get a sense of how your world works and how things unfold, and I understand that we have court issues to talk about, and we have issues about trying to get your new apartment, and we have issues about someday in the distant future helping you find another job, and we will do those things. I commit to be with you on this journey of getting it all together. And you've told me that you had a teacher once who used what you thought was behavior mod therapy, and you don't like that. So I'm going to do my best to never fall into that zone. If I do, let me know if I'm making you feel uncomfortable, right? Boom, right? They feel special. Well done. One other thing, just before I wrap this up, from Jungian therapy and Freudian therapy, there's a lot of stuff in there that I think is junk, and we're going to let it go. But for the moment, I will say there's a lot in there about looking at our dreams, looking at our subconscious, looking at the magic, looking at the collective conscience, which you could say is the culture of your time and place. And we have touched on that in some of the other videos. But when I say encourage your client to ponder their dreams, I'm implicitly saying there's their subconscious. When I'm saying, get them to play with crayons and drawing and doodling, I'm implicitly saying your subconscious matters. Sometimes the abuse that we've experienced is so intense that people do push it down, or they push parts of it down. And at some point we need to help some of it to come up, but we don't want to flood them or overwhelm them. We want to do just bits and bits as is wholesome, right? So, said differently, you're not going to ask someone all the facts. That would be in the world of the cop or the lawyer, So how many times have you been sexually abused? Were you vaginally, anally, or orally abused? Was it one time each time? And how deep did he insert his penis in your anus, right? Like, these things are those kind of data, facts, legalistic clarifications. They'll tell you what you need to know to help them. You may at some point have to say, so our court date is approaching, and I want to problem solve with you how court might go. I don't know exactly how your day in court will go, or how your lawyer or the cops from your story, how they will be useful or not, but I can tell you I know about patterns, and that's one of our previous videos. The legal system has patterns. Right? There are things about incest or rape or wife assault or sexual harassment in the workplace or homophobia or racism that we can't always count on the police system to feel and see and know the way we do. Right? So, putting it right out there and saying to them, the cop might not be tender with you. That's how cops are. That's a pattern sometimes. So, let's still problem solve so that day it won't be so brutal, or it won't be so shocking. Let's imagine.
I said, or disarming for you.
Or disarming, exactly. Asking them, what are you imagining might happen in court? What are you playing out in your mind? Because
you need to be prepared.
You need to be prepared. What can we do to strengthen you for that day? So not coaching her on what to say or not say, but asking her, and she probably, the child, the youth, the teenager, the elder, they may already have a whole conversation going. It's not only us two who've been watching all those cop shows, right? CSI and Law and Order. The average citizen has watched that stuff, and they know it might be painful, it might be scary. So asking them, what are you imagining? Teach me what you're picturing. Teach me what you think the cop might say, the lawyer might say. And we know the pattern.
Yeah.
So this is where we're going to be on their side as an ally. We know what the pattern is. And in their subconscious, that pattern, you know, cops will never believe me because I'm Indigenous. Or the cops will never believe me because I'm a survival sex trade worker. And I know that they judge us, right? So this may be true, no. We don't want to be all Bambi and sunshine and rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
But we can be their allies through these painful, difficult things. So thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you in our next video.